Josh, University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee Athletic Director Amanda Braun, and Milwaukee Bucks President Peter Fagan. My goodness, what a year it was in 2021. We'll reflect a little bit. We'll also look ahead to some of the challenges you all face in 2022. But a quick recap here. UW women's volleyball team wins a national title. Ground breaks on a Camp Randall South End Zone construction development project. Chris, you're presiding over all of that. One of the highest rated basketball players in the country chooses Wisconsin-Milwaukee over Duke and Kentucky. Amanda, I know you got good things in store for the basketball program with Patrick Baldwin Jr. As really a face of that team here. And who knows how long you'll stay, but even to talk about an NBA talent on the program, I think is pretty impressive. Also, Peter, by the way, the Milwaukee Bucks won a national title. So pretty impressive year, 2021.
Yeah, we call it a world championship. So just to put it in perspective.
Well, and to piggyback off that, I can't get the image out of my mind. There's 65,000 people filling the Deer District. Now, when you go to the city with a plan for what the arena is going to look like and what the Deer District is going to look like, and Chris and Amanda, I'm sure you can appreciate the energy that was in Milwaukee during that time. There's now another level of this construction that you've probably had to rethink and reshape. So where are we at with the construction, the development of the Deer District, the phase 2, I guess, of the whole thing?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, it really has pivoted. So the fact of the pandemic kind of is a quick halt on physical construction and development, and then the growth of the Deer District and kind of what really became, a storybook road to a championship, but also the magnet, the destination of the Deer District as a place for hundreds of thousands of people, like over a 2-month period, changed our whole feeling about kind of everything from the physical footprint to the interactions to what buildings we actually want. So we started about 4 months ago on a new feasibility study and really thinking about a general plan design that might sway a little bit from what we thought about 5 or 6 years ago, because we think as we build this out, again, we want to be that destination, for when there are events in arena, create events out of the arena, have the Deer District really be that magnet. But now we really kind of understand the importance and the value of that outside space and how do you activate it and how can you make it an even better place to interact and engage with. So it was incredible. And like what a storybook march, to it. And it's Delusionville, because when we went to the city and said like, oh, this will happen, of course, we kind of thought it might happen, but we certainly didn't think it'd happen at that level. And it changed everything in such a good way.
So what is the next phase of the development? And does it include a skywalk over to Milwaukee Panthers Arena?
It does not. Skywalks are so expensive. No, but what it does do is thinking about the elements and the variables. So we have a hotel that's halfway done and kind of built up, which will really give it. So just keep thinking about how do we aggregate people and density where they live there, they work there, and they play there. What the residential mix is going to be, which is going to be extremely kind of incredible. And we'll announce that in the next couple months. And then the commercial mix. So, what changes that neighborhood is having a couple thousand people work there on a daily basis. And that'll be like the next element of do it. So then you kind of have like a 24/7, 365 element of people, which activates and retail and entertainment and activity of everything. So I think like we took a little bit of like what I would call an 18-month kind of stop in the pandemic, on kind of development. And now, knock on wood, when you win an NBA championship, it just is a great catalyst for interest and involvement and development. So we're back on the fast track.
Chris, you guys have now broken ground on the South End Zone project at Camp Randall. Should be set in time for the 2022 season. Is that all still on track?
Yeah, it is. It's amazing to see the progress that's being accomplished on a day-to-day basis. Our partners at Cullen have been hard at work. I mean, an 8-month build for a $70 million project with a strict move-in date, if you so to speak, of the first game of the season. They're on track. They're on budget. It's been interesting. Just to kind of build off the comments that Peter made. So it's forced us to look at how we approach our facilities, not just a 7 Saturdays a year type build like historically we may have, but our interest is in attracting fans, new fans with a new offering. And that experience, I think, as Peter alluded to, much of that experience takes place off of our footprint. And so we've been watching the Deer District and learning from the Bucks in terms of how to make that experience, that game day experience, and beyond. And for us, it's a combination of Kohl Center events and Camp Randall events, and this kind of corridor between those down the Regent Street corridor. What could that look like in the future? But yet, it's a different offering, it's a different experience, a different market, one that needs to stay true to college.
It's interesting. I think you and Amanda can both identify with, it's the first quarter of a football game. You look in the stands, and it seems like year after year, takes a little longer for some of the students to get into the stands. Amanda trying to attract and just harness in that energy of a basketball game at an arena that's off campus versus one that's on campus. I know that's been kind of a debate over the years. Do we do it on campus where the students are right there, or do we try and move it to someplace a little bigger to attract more fans? How do you work through those challenges of the best place to put one of your marquee products in men's basketball?
Yeah, that answer's gotten a lot easier since the Bucks have done what they've done. So really, to tag on to what Peter was talking about, they are a catalyst. And for us, our students, generally attracting them to the city of Milwaukee, the Bucks are helpful to us. So you talk about student athletes and staff, people we recruit, they come to the city and they see what's happening. It's very exciting. So being down there at Panther Arena, which now has our name on it, and being near the Bucks in the Deer District is really a big deal. So we're seeing the benefit of that. Obviously the championship, but the way they're building out and making our downtown just a really cool destination place has been helpful to us.
So it sort of becomes all encompassing, right? So the Deer District sort of spills in. Eventually this thing is going to tie all the way out to the Avenue, and everything else is going to be sort of lumped in.
Yeah, I think when you look at Madison too, I mean, Chris kind of said, engagement and environment and people are changing. This has become, people want to be together. People want general admission instead of kind of seating. People want events around. When you think about what tailgating is, I mean, you will see environments and activities kind of change because it is a different generation. As we look at younger fans and as we look to evolve, engagement is different than it's ever been. So how do you create these footprints and you use the teams and the success and the schools and the pro teams as that catalyst to really captivate, because like the best is that captivated audience that you can have, support, buy, and stay for an extended period of time. And that's the value of really engaging those fans. And it's changing like dramatically on the way people consume college and pro sports in a big way.
In-game entertainment's a big deal because it's very easy for me to sit on my couch. The bathroom's really close. I can grab a beer out of the fridge, right? Everything is right there for you. Peter, I don't think there's a team in the NBA that has better in-game entertainment than the Bucks. And that's from someone who's been on the road traveling throughout the playoffs over the last several years. I mean, it's phenomenal. Chris, do you learn from that? Because it is one thing that I do hear from some who go to Badgers games. I wish there's just a little bit more that we could do at the game. Maybe get us there a little bit earlier.
Yeah, it is something that we're observant on and that we learn from. I think Peter hit the nail on the head. It's a matter of in our environment, in a college environment, it's a matter of honoring the tradition and the pageantry of what takes place in our venues, but also providing an opportunity or an experience, an offering that's relevant to our customer. And, Peter mentioned it, the customer is changing. And, I think about the students that come through our venues right now and sit in our student sections. And by the way, you mentioned a point earlier about our students and showing up on time or not. This year they were there and they were there early and they were there on time, and we couldn't get them in the building fast enough. And so that was on us. And, so our fans, especially our students, are really faithful in their following, their support of our programs. We need to make it easier on them to get in. We need to make that experience a more relevant one, a more memorable one for them in the long run, so that, when they think about their time on our campus, they think about the experiences they've had around Badger athletics as an important and a significant part of that experience. And I think, that will cause us to think about how we evolve our offerings and what that could look like. And, that'll be changed. And that's, it's a necessity and it's healthy. It's not easy, but I think in the long run, it'll pay off.
Amanda, is that a significant challenge too at
Yeah.
Milwaukee Panthers Arena?
Yeah, I think so. In-game entertainment's ever evolving, right? So our folks are always out there trying to figure out what people are enjoying most. And our students love giveaways and they love games. And our general fan base loves the collegiate experience with the band and spirit groups, as we were talking about earlier. I'll say one thing too that the Bucks do well that we've worked on quite a bit, and Chris, you probably have as well. This generation of students care a lot about causes. It's important to them, the community engagement, social justice issues. So to cause marketing, that sort of thing is more than just a trend. It's really core to what we do to engage with our community and do things that are meaningful for our fan base, including our students who really gravitate to that.
That's interesting. You bring it up. It's very timely. The Bucks just had their Mac Fun game, and it's kind of been on hold because of the pandemic over the last couple of years. Peter, that used to be a preseason game, the Mac Fun game.
Right.
Is that no longer going to be the case? It was great to have it positioned in the regular season with so many people in the stands and so many eyes on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's part of the evolution. It's kind of what Chris was saying. Everything matters. So, especially on a pro, value proposition when tickets are expensive, like there's a return. So, I mean, we think of every element from the egress to the ingress to how people are greeted, to how people are departing and how we say goodbye to them and how we thank them, to the cleanliness of the bathrooms, to the environment of the food, and what those touch points are. Like every detail matters in a big way for that takeaway to Chris and Amanda think about is like, what is that memory? For them, it's the attachment to the school. For us, it's, repeat business, to come back. This is an environment I love going to. I want to come back. I had a real positive experience in a big way. And part of that, we are such a cause-based community, in so many ways. It's kind of, the challenge is how do you pick your partners? Where do you want to really focus on? And the Mac Fund's a great example of something that's been going on for 50 years, for the Bucks, and the Bucks really kind of helped build the Mac Fund in a big way with that group. So that's a great evolution to, like, it should be a regular season game.
It's interesting, Peter, at Fiserv Forum, you get fans in, maybe for a Marquette game, for a concert. There's so many different things that happen at Fiserv Forum, and fans can enjoy their time in the suite or general seating area. They can enjoy a beer or a cocktail. And you've got several offerings. Amanda, you played an off-campus arena, and I don't know if the word luxury is the right word, but that's an option for fans who are in attendance. Chris, this remains a bit of a barrier at UW. Is it time for UW to revisit its stance on alcohol sales at campus arenas or venues in the general seating area?
Well, I think you touched on a good point. It's been a topic that's we've been observing. We've done some work against it. I think this year with the South End Zone, you'll see sales of alcohol served in open air environments. That'll be a significant first step for us in Camp Randall. We've got a concert coming up here in March, Greta Van Fleet. You'll see alcohol sales there as well, and I think there's an opportunity there for us. Again, it's an offering to our patrons that they've come to expect, frankly. But at the same time, some of the study that we've undertaken and the partnerships that we've explored specifically with campus law enforcement would suggest that it creates a safer environment in our venues. It avoids some of the problems of binging that take place before fans come into our venues. And so it'll be something that we begin to explore.
Is it to the point, and I'm probably beyond this point, where you've chatted with other universities within the Big Ten who have decided to take this leap? And I'm sure they've got the studies, they've got the revenue reports and things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've put together in collaboration with campus partners a study, a comprehensive study of the Big Ten in terms of football venues, arenas, concert business, and I think we learned a lot from it, and we'll begin to start experimenting.
Amanda, is that a big thing? Do you hear from fans at games that It's great to watch a college basketball game and have a beer, something you couldn't do if the game was being played at the Klatsche Center.
We don't hear about it because it's just been what we've done for so long, being downtown. And in fact, we've gone another step with the Milwaukee Brewing Company, and they developed the Panther Pilsner, and that's out there now on the streets, and people are loving it. Our alumni are responding, and sales have been great. All the data coming back from the advertising marketing campaign has been really positive. So I think to Chris's point, I've been involved in the NCAA governance a little bit on some committees that oversee championships, and they're now allowing alcohol at NCAA championships. And that wasn't an overnight decision. They did the same thing with baseball championships and in lacrosse. And I think baseball, they had a little bit of an issue. So they were testing it to see if the parking lot stuff would change a little bit. And so people wouldn't come in having binged, and it's worked. Not a big revenue driver. There's some revenue that comes in. That's not the reason why it was done. But I think if you do it in a reasonable way, you can actually create a better environment for your fans.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Peter, you have an owner who's got his name on his own brand of tequila with Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's back to the experience. On the collegiate level, we're hosting the NCAAs, and kind of evolving. I mean, when you think about, I'm with two educators, so I'm the for-profit entity here to
Right.
to think about it. But I do think, listen, this is about driving customer wants and needs and kind of fulfilling and certainly recreational sports to pro sports to NCAA sports. People want to be able to enjoy it in a customized way. And here in the state of Wisconsin, like no other place in the world, people like to have their drinks, their alcoholic beverages, in consumption, while they're watching it. And we find that, much like what Chris and Amanda are saying, it's controlled in an environment, where it's served under a controlled basis. And we are watching for over serving and people, which is not the case when you're not in a controlled environment.
Hey, Chris, you brought up something about ticket prices. Peter, I think you mentioned this as well. I'd like to hear from each one of you. How do you structure your ticket prices? Is it based on success? Is it based on demand? Peter, obviously a world championship is a big deal. People want to see Giannis play. He's a generational talent. You've got talent that kind of comes in and out and replenishes at the college level, Chris. But certainly Badgers games, be it hockey, basketball, football, huge draws. How do you structure your ticket costs and prices in relation to other Big Ten universities?
Yeah, I mean, in the simplest form, we structure them in a way that allows us to underwrite, the costs associated with the opportunity that we provide to 800 student athletes. I mean, that's the simplest way I can answer the question. I mean, we are an education-based or education mission organization, and our mission is to provide, an opportunity for 800 student athletes to obtain an education from a world-class institution. It's different. It's a different goal. And so, we need to generate revenues that allow us to deliver on that mission. Part of delivering on that mission is to preserve competitiveness amongst our peers. That's important at Wisconsin. Championships are important at Wisconsin. And so we back into our ticket pricing. We have historically backed into our ticket pricing that way. Now that's changing. The market is changing. The secondary market is changing. And as we become more sophisticated in the way that we can analyze the data and see what our customers are telling us, what our fans are telling us, what our season ticket holders are telling us, it's going to cause us to evolve our offering. And, just anecdotally, if you think about today's customer, and this hits home for me, I've got 3 kids that are still at home with us. What a family like ours goes through in terms of activities and the costs associated with those activities versus what they were when we were kids is completely different. And so, and it's going to continue to change. And so I wonder in the future, we have built Camp Randall around a 7-game season ticket package. And I think that was an offering that was probably more relevant 20 years ago than it is today. And, we're not the leader in evolving our offering, but, we'll be forced to in the future. And so, our ticket prices will change accordingly.
Amanda, how challenging is that for you? You want to make it as easy as possible for students, especially, to get into the arena and watch your games, head off to baseball games, things along that line. How do you work in relation to the Horizon League with regard to your ticket structure?
Well, the students don't pay for tickets. They assist with their student fee that they contribute to athletics and recreation annually. So that really is a benefit to them that we provide for every single sport, including shuttles to the arena and that sort of thing. We do the same. I mean, we look at the landscape within the Horizon League. You know, we don't generate near the revenue, but it does offset our expenses, the revenue that we generate. Variable pricing, and we've started to consider that if we can get some folks to come and play us in our arena, we would do some variable pricing, single game tickets, but that's something that we've looked at in order to justify some increases. But, you know, like the Bucks make it easy for us because we're really affordable, you know, and families can come, and that is a selling point for us. You know, NBA is not for every single family all the time, and we provide an opportunity, an alternative to that, or at least to complement what Peter and the Bucks are doing.
Is that a challenge now, Peter? Now that you're a world championship team, does it change the way you think?
It's always a challenge. It's thousands of hours a year on thinking about everything from the utility of our season ticket holders to our price. I think, you know, we are in a market that is so cost conscious, you know, unlike a lot of other markets. So there are inflection points. I mean, the truth is for us, you know, I always like to tell everybody that, you know, 75 to 80% of our ticket revenue comes from the first 5 rows, just to put everything in perspective of like what those is. And by the way, those tickets will always be a premium. They will be in high demand, and we will like continue to grow them. The interesting thing about Fiserv, when you see kind of what the schematic is and what the variables, there's something for everyone. So yes, we have thousands of dollars, you know, for a ticket in the front row, and we have a $20 student ticket, you know, which will not be center court 10th row in there, but it's how do you continue that mix? How do you continue partial plans, group sales, and kind of continue? Because we are still we are world champions, but we are still in a small market to get it. So we've got to cultivate the next generation of fans. We've got to be affordable to that family of 4 or 5. We've got to create special events that really kind of that move the needle. So, you know, the volume is like, even as world champions, like you've got to sell in a big way, and pricing is so sensitive and crucial here. You want to, you know, have a level of respect for the consumer and kind of balance that demand. And we've had the storybook 5 years. You know, there's not many teams that open a new arena, which is this catalyst for, you know, a large price increase and kind of change in ticket prices, and then kind of a very successful winning on the court, you know, thing. So we're in a great space where our demand is like extremely high, but I think our owners have been great, you know, kind of realistic on knowing. So there are 30 teams in the NBA. We're somewhere in the 12 or 13th kind of in game day, in ticket revenue for the day. And I don't really see us being able to jump, you know, the teams that are above us are in major markets, you know, that have large, you know, capabilities for pricing and large audiences and everything. I mean, the interesting thing for all of us is where the secondary ticket, you know, market is going to go, and how can we as kind of the content providers and operators like start to control that, because that's another opportunity.
We're going to step aside here for just a moment. When we come back, I do want to talk about the landscape of college athletics. Name, image, likeness is a thing now. I'm sure Barry's rolling his eyes somewhere, Chris, but I want to get your thoughts on that. Amanda, you as well, as the athletic director for a mid-major university. It's 11:30 on WTMJ. More of our sports panel here on WTMJ 2022 coming up in just a moment.
Individual rates, coverage, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to terms and conditions, not available in all areas. If you're a small business
Do you
owner,
have any
listen up.
big folks
Insurance wants to give you one of
on
those
image and
aha
likeness,
moments,
like making
the
money
kind that could save you
on
money.
football or basketball?
Workers' comp is
Yeah.
probably one of the
Well,
biggest costs
yes.
you face. But did you know that
The,
insurance providers have flexibility in setting their prices?
Mike,
That's
if you
right.
notice my
But many
hesitation,
don't
we've-
bother
we've
giving
not
small businesses the
put a lot of
savings
teeth in our
you
policy
deserve.
about
Instead,
reporting
you can get
them.
lumped in with other
So kids
businesses
got savvy
and
pretty
overcharged.
quick in that.
Pi Insurance was created to
We
change that. With
require
Pi,
them
you
to
get a quote
report
tailored
their
specifically
agreements
to your
for
business,
compliance
and you could save
purposes,
up to 30%
but there's no penalty
with no
to
hassle
do.
and
Yeah,
no
okay.
hidden
And I don't
fees.
really want
And with
there to be
helpful
one.
representatives
Actually, I think
just
we're
a
gonna get out
call
of the
away,
business
it's easy to
altogether.
understand why
It's not
Pi is rated
really doing anything.
excellent by customers
Um,
on Trustpilot. Take 3
you know,
minutes to see
we're
how
now
much you
one
could
recruiting
save
cycle
with
into
Pi
this, and
Insurance. Ask your
what's
agent for Pi or go to
becoming a reality is
trypi.com. That's
a completely unregulated
TRYPIE.com.
marketplace.
Yeah, no, it's the Wild West. It's so
Yes.
interesting. We deal with it kind of like
From the
crypto and
WTMJ
NFT
Breaking News
and
Center,
every-
I'm
there are
Eric
these
Bilstead. Governor
kind of
Evers
rules, but
says
it's the
he's open to
evolving kind of
bail
like- it's not even
reform. It's a
established
hot
market,
topic
but
these
it's
days in Wisconsin
how
following
great,
the Waukesha
what you want to
holiday
do, because
parade
at some point
attack.
it's going
Daryl
to be
Brooks
highly
was
regulated.
out on a
and we're
$1,000 bail
kind of
for an
sitting,
alleged
but
violent
I get
crime
it.
when
Oh
he
my
drove
God.
his SUV through the parade,
Yeah.
killing 6 people and
It'll take-
injuring 60 others. It
It'll
happened in
take one
November.
or two
Evers on
ridiculously
WTMJ
bad deals that
2022
circumvent other
earlier
rules and
today.
everything else, and then
Parade in Waukesha was something that all of us have a heavy heart about and will forever. But
I don't
from
want to leave you
that,
on a path you
we've
don't wanna go
obviously
down and
started
asking about
looking
it.
at bail
you're
reform.
fine.
I'm
I was
willing
going
to
to
look
bring
at
up
that.
Braylon being
Bail
a
reform
Super Bowl
measures are being circulated
Yeah.
in Madison.
Brian,
2 of the
that's
Republican
great.
candidates for
Those
governor
national
were also
football
guests
guys.
earlier
That's
today
Yeah.
on WTMJ
Happy to talk
2022.
about
You
Just
can
your
hear it all.
team,
Just text
uh,
2022 to the
and
Economic
then
Mortgage
that
Talking
comes up
text line,
much.
855-616-1620. We'll
And
send you all the
then
information.
Um,
President Biden
we're
says
not
there
going
remains a
to
high
dive
risk
into
of a
that.
Russian invasion
My
of
son gets
Ukraine, and now we're
$250
hearing
worth
that
of
the number
wings
2
a
diplomat
week
at the U.S. Embassy
at
has been
Lexington-
expelled in
in
Moscow.
Lexington, Virginia.
The Secretary of State now
For-
paying a
that's the
visit to
funniest
the
thing,
UN
like, ever.
before heading
Like
overseas.
they're like, yeah, small Division III college. Like they love, like it's like he went in and said like he hits like he's a 3-point shooter, so he hits threes, and it's like, oh, hey, I don't want to just like wings for the team. And I think it's more of
Blinken
a
laying out in
hoot, but
great
like
detail what
interestingly
he
enough,
says is
like,
the Russian plan
you
to
know,
invade
they kind
Ukraine.
of
He
do
called
it,
on
they're
Russia
kind of
to
on
show
it.
tangible
It's
proof it was
interesting. I
de-escalation.
wonder like what the underworld's going to be of
with no
who
politics,
gets. I always worry about who I
equivocation,
deal with agents all
or
the time.
deflection,
Like who gets
that
connected to
Russia
these
will
players
not
to do these
invade
things, which is
Ukraine.
Karen
my
Travers,
big worry.
ABC News, the White House.
To the Olympics, the U.S. men's
already
curling
there,
team will play Canada for the bronze medal after falling to Great Britain earlier this morning. The team consists of Wisconsinites John Schuster and Matt Hamilton. They'll play for the bronze during the overnight hours tonight, here local time.
Really appreciate
Time
you
now
guys
for the
coming in, too. I know
WTMJ
you're
Drake and Associates market
awfully busy,
update.
so
The trouble in
appreciate you spending an hour.
Russia and at Ukraine's border there causing trouble on Wall Street. The Dow down 354 to
Do you interview any of these curling guys
34,579. The
that are
Nasdaq's
all-
down
So Matt Hamilton is
224 to
like one of them, he's like
13,899.
one of our
The S&P is down
teammates.
49
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
44.24. WTMJ Pella, WI.com. Time saver traffic. So far, so good on the roadways this morning. 94 eastbound is clear from Highway 16 all the way
I
into the
kind
city.
of think this is a
17-minute trip.
huge
41, 45
kind of
southbound, no
boost
issues
for
there from Highway Q to the
Every
zoo.
Yeah.
43 southbound from Brown
Have you tried
Road into the city.
No.
Also,
Have you tried
delay
it?
free.
No.
It's big in my.
I
grew
haven't
up
done that
South
once.
Madison, about half
Downtown. The
Yeah.
WTMJ
There's clubs
5-day
everywhere.
forecast. Cloudy and windy
I
today.
bet if you did
A
that
high of
at
27
Madison,
degrees.
like
There's a slight
a tournament,
chance for
you'd have
light snow
800
to the
kids
Yeah.
south. We're going to
Exactly.
see
Yeah.
that
Totally.
coming.
Yeah.
Tonight, mainly
to get the
clear,
ice and
breezy and
yeah,
cold,
whatever.
low of
I don't
10.
know,
For
there's gotta be
Friday,
ice in
partly
that.
cloudy and
Some
windy.
of it.
There is a
Great.
chance for
Yeah.
snow late on
Yeah.
Friday, a high
We-
of 28 degrees.
We control
Saturday,
ice.
sunny but chilly,
We
a
got
high
plenty
of
of ice.
Good
4.
point.
Sunday, sunny,
got a-
breezy,
I got
and
more
warmer,
ice than
a high
I'd
of
like to
46
have.
Forget
degrees.
golf outings.
on-
Do it.
Yeah,
Right now in Milwaukee,
The trick is to get
I'm Eric
pebble,
Bilstead,
like there's a
Saturday
certain
Unlimited,
pebble into that ice.
WTMJ
You
News
just
Time,
walk on it.
11:35.
It's like a
Looking for a new
knockdown
car or
texture on
truck,
a wall.
only to figure out that
really?
there's a
Yeah, so it's not
shortage. We
super
know of a
smooth.
place to see over
It's
350
interesting. I
brand
think
new
it's glass.
vehicles
Yeah, the
all
Tosa
under
Curling
one
Club
roof
is right
with
behind
no
Park
pressure
Park.
to
It's a little
buy. It's the
old brick
Milwaukee
building.
Car and Truck
Been there
Show
forever.
downtown at the
like
convention
3
center.
tap
It's
years
fun for
and
the whole family.
go out
Play
and have some
mini
fun on
golf
the
on
ice.
tricky trails. Be sure to see Subaru's
You'd be a
pet
good
adoption.
sweeper,
And
Chris.
Mascot Day
Yeah.
is the
Yeah.
6th. Order tickets online.
Over
As long as afterwards, ice skates. Yeah.
Back after a while.
More normal
Yeah, there may be
seats.
something there. It's the alternative to the golf
Yeah, there you go.
golf outing.
Hey, Michelle, with kids back in school, the house is no longer a classroom.
No more checking to see if they're playing
I've never
cookie
heard
from
you
their
guys talking to
computers.
painful golf
Plus,
outings for ages.
A year and a half.
Who am I
of
playing with
extra
today?
rough holes
Yeah.
has caused all kinds of wear and tear.
Okay, here we
to
go.
homes.
I bet a lot of parents are ready to do something else with that remote classroom.
Our team of professional
They're a
construction
thing,
Inc.
that's for
is
sure.
standing by, ready to refurbish or add on,
At least those
Kitchen,
events are
bath,
back.
additions, and more.
For
Call
sure.
TCI
You know, like
today.
or
Overall.
stop by our showroom in Waukesha.
Professional construction.
Here we go.
Welcome back to WTMJ 2022, presented by Annex Wealth Management and sponsored by the Bartolotta Restaurants and Professional Construction Inc.
And welcome back into the program. I'm Greg Matzik. We continue our sports panel with Milwaukee Bucks President Peter Feigin, Wisconsin-Milwaukee Athletic Director Amanda Braun, and University of Wisconsin Athletic Director Chris McIntosh. One of the people in this panel may or may not have flattened me playing youth football. When you get hit that hard, you kind of tend to forget where it came from. But Chris, I think you flattened me once playing youth football. I was a Brookfield guy. You were a Pewaukee guy.
Yeah, I can't confirm nor deny that may have happened. Yeah,
I ended up with a nice career in track and field in college because of
Good.
that. So
Safer.
And why do I want to get hit? We touched on on this during our break here, but it was hard to ignore something watching the Super Bowl beyond the game itself. But Chris, I noticed your 18-year-old running back Braylon Allen in a Super Bowl commercial, and that was maybe the first time it sort of blew my mind that this is now a thing. There's all sorts of social media type campaigns, and athletes are associated with those and likely being paid because they can be now. But Braylon Allen in a Super Bowl commercial was like, whew, okay, this is for real now. What are your challenges at the University of Wisconsin for sort of keeping track of all these things happening with your athletes who are now able to make money?
Well, Greg, I think you're right. I think, it was a bit of a milestone moment to see Braylon during the Super Bowl. It's a new development in, taking place in a conventional or traditional piece of media, and then during the Super Bowl itself. And, I personally, I thought it was awesome. Braylon is a great kid. He's a great representative of our program, of our university. He's obviously a tremendous player, an incredible player. He's done everything the right way. He's developed clearly a value for his likeness, and he's capitalizing on that. And I think it's a great example of what can be accomplished or what can be done. It's a healthy experience for him. It's a great experience for him. It's great. It's great for our program that he's featured that way. And I don't see anything wrong with that. So I have, I have no concerns over Braylon's involvement specifically. I worry about, the types of deals and the types of opportunities that may be presented to our athletes, because I worry about them, and I want to make sure that they're safe, and that is our priority. And right now it's almost a completely unregulated environment, a market where we have our hands tied behind our back in terms of the advice that we are able to provide to our student athletes. We're not able to give them business advice. We're not able to give them tax advice or legal advice. And it conflicts with, like I mentioned earlier, our biggest priority, which is to make sure that we keep them safe. We've been really fortunate to date that our student athletes have benefited in a way that has been healthy. What worries me is not what we're talking about right now. That is a market-driven approach to name, image, and likeness. What worries me are these undercurrents of recruiting enticement, enticement around transfers, and the times and the environment that we currently live in. There aren't a lot of guardrails for that right now, and it doesn't seem as though there's a lot of enforcement of that right now. And so it's been deregulated, so to speak. It's a dynamic period of time. I'm hopeful that there'll be some stability in the future. In what form, I'm not sure. If that's going to come from the NC2A, if that's going to come from Congress, I think anybody's guess is as good as mine. But we need some form of stability and some guardrails around this, specifically for recruitment.
Amanda, do you see this as being a danger zone, the name, image, likeness thing, especially from a mid-major university, based upon some of the things Chris mentioned?
Yeah, I agree with Chris. I think it's a good thing for our student athletes. And it's, philosophically, it's a great thing. When we move from philosophy to practice, sometimes things tend to get a little stickier. And I think that's what we will see, and we are seeing, right? There was a rush to create some state laws across the country back in June. And I remember a phone call with Bill Scholl at Marquette, wondering if we should reach out and come together and create some sort of law, because there was a question as to how the NCAA was going to handle this. And I remember saying, well, let's just leave it as it is, because the NCAA, from what I was hearing, wasn't going to have many guardrails. It was going to be no recruiting inducement and no pay for play. That's exactly what came down. You just saw, I think this week, Alabama got rid of the law that they created because it was putting them in a disadvantage, that they had to follow that law, and they wanted the freer opportunity. I think probably the unregulated has been happening, right? The unenforceable has been happening. It's just now we're calling it something, and student athletes are out, doing whatever it is, a brand elevation for themselves or some autograph signing. I think it'll benefit in a positive way at the mid-major level, being able to do camps and clinics in their hometowns. You know, a lot of our kids come from Wisconsin, upper Midwest, and going back to their hometown to make money off of a camp or clinic is a really cool idea that they weren't able to do before. So I think we'll see some positives, and then we will see some of the unintended, I think, consequences.
Yeah, Peter, you've kind of got a response to this on a personal level, right? You've got kids, college age, one going to college, I think, pretty soon, right?
Yeah,
Senior in high
no,
school?
two kids. I mean, I think we're all kind of on the same page of. I see it active. You know, I feel like, you know, the universities are disadvantaged not being able to resource and help. You know, one of my roles and John Horst's roles and Coach Bud's role is like, how do we help our guys? You know, kind of, and these professional athletes are. We think they're very young and inexperienced as pro athletes, much less like college athletes. And it is a dog-eat-dog world in the world of like generating revenue on name and likeness in the world. And, you know, how we kind of have them out there and can't support and consult and give them is my big, you know, kind of rub with what's going on, because you know, everybody needs help and kind of guidance. We spend a lot of time, and these athletes are targets in like a very big way. The bigger the athlete, and at the college level, I think, you know, they do need some protection.
Is there a fear, Amanda, that you might lose out on a recruit because maybe your offerings wouldn't be the same, or how do you know what I mean? The transfer portal is a thing now, and it just seems easier than ever for a student athlete to be here one day and be somewhere else the next.
Yeah, I think it's a fine line on that recruiting inducement, right? The fact that we're in the city of Milwaukee is a great benefit. And I think Chris would say the same in Madison. We have we're not in a small town. So our student athletes could take advantage of something that if it were to present itself to them. And we have an opportunity to make introductions to people. If they're interested in doing a deal with one of our student athletes, you know, it's something we have to be very cautious about, we've been told, but we can make an introduction and then let them represent themselves or get representation to get a good deal. So it might become that, but it's not. The challenge will be an unenforceable rule that is recruiting inducement is prohibited. And I just don't know how you enforce that. We're about to find out. I think the NCAA is taking a look at some of these deals that have been done. These collectives are getting really popular right now. I think that's going to be something that's put together in a formal way that the NCAA may come in and take a look at. Like, how are you selecting these student athletes and that sort of thing. So it's really a wait and see approach. We're not trying to be aggressive in that space. We're just trying to be sure that we're taking care of our student athletes.
Yeah, Chris, how involved do you want to be? Right? I mean, you mentioned a list of things you can't really do for your student athletes who are profiting. Do you stumble across some of your student athletes? Oh, okay, well, now this athlete is doing this now and likely being paid for it. Do you really need to be in the loop on all that?
I think we have a desire to be very involved for the reasons that Amanda and Peter mentioned. You know, you joked earlier, you know, Barry Alvarez is rolling his eyes. I don't think he is actually. In one of his biggest strengths and lessons that he taught all of us was to embrace change. And this is the phase that we're in right now. It's a changing environment. We need to be relevant in that environment. We need to, you know, we view this name, image, and likeness as a way that we can support our student athletes in a way similar to the way we support them academically, the way we support them in their career and leadership development, their personal development, and all these other areas that are outside of sport that we currently support them. This is just it's a new facet. It's a new area of the experience. And so we want to be involved in providing support and providing a healthy educational opportunity for them, one that they can profit from. I don't think that those need to be mutually exclusive. My interest in being involved, though, is to help them and support them, not to control them, not to be the policing of this. It's a way that we can support them that's consistent with many of the other ways we do.
I want to switch gears here because one thing we can all relate to is the NCAA tournament, which is coming to Milwaukee this year. The first two rounds will be at Fiserv Forum, March 18th, March 20th. I've been to tournament games at the old Bradley Center, and it is crazy what happens to downtown Milwaukee. It's unbelievable, Peter. So very cool that you get this opportunity. How do your conversations go with the NCAA? Where does it start to get those games in Milwaukee?
It starts with Marquette, who's the sponsor of the host of Fiserv Forum. I would say the best answer to that question is for Amanda and Chris. I appreciate what they deal with on a daily basis to such a degree I could never imagine.
The efficiency of the process.
Death by committee should be the title of how to work, with the NCAA. But listen, it is fantastic. Part of Fiserv Forum and part of the growth is like, how do we track these events? How do we pull them off and kind of go beyond expectations? How do we become that magnet for Big Ten, for NCAA, for everything we want to do? Chris and I talk over the years of how do we bring hockey to Fiserv Forum. So this is like kind of one of those, and how great the NCAA tournament is. So this is like a great way out of this kind of like still this kind of the tail wagging pandemic, to again light up March Madness, in the district and in the city of Milwaukee and really celebrate. And we got a top 20 team in Wisconsin that has a chance to could play in Milwaukee, which
would we love that?
Which I wasn't going to say it because I don't want to jinx it, but if that happens, then we're really going to have fun. For the first couple rounds.
I have seen that movie before. It's a good movie.
Yes.
Playing Oregon a couple of years ago. I think it was 2004, maybe the time previous. Might be off by a year, but I remember the Badgers fans felt like we got gypped on our seed, and then he ended up running into Pittsburgh, which was also gypped on their seed. But nonetheless, the kind of energy just in the city of Milwaukee around that tournament is ridiculous. Before I ask you a question, Amanda, a quick question. Could the Big Ten tournament ever be at Fiserv Forum? I know typically it's I don't know if Marquette has a role in that, but typically it's Chicago, Indianapolis, but you got this bright, shiny new arena in Milwaukee. Chris, is that ever a possibility?
Yeah, I think it is a possibility. I think, for reasons that are consistent with what we've talked about earlier, there's a new approach and there's new leadership at the Big Ten, and there's a desire to look at things differently. And so I wouldn't rule it out. But, it's not as Peter mentioned, the process isn't exactly an easy one, and there are no shortage of constituents that have an opinion on that or a say in that.
But we're in a different place. I mean, I would say for us, this is now a city that, was set to host the DNC, might host the RNC, will get an NBA All-Star game, will become on that platform. I mean, one of the big objections, or hills to climb was the size of market, was the ability to host that type of event. I mean, I think for us, like there's such opportunity on the college, kind of event side that, now what Wisconsin's done in volleyball, to create the Big Ten tournament, in volleyball and special events, hockey, we're looking and talking at NHL teams and more college teams on preseason hockey and doing in-season stuff. So, it's fun. And that's part of like the way we want Fiserv Forum positioned as like this would be an unbelievable destination.
Amanda, you've got a background in basketball from Siena, did your master's at North Carolina. Like you've seen it all, mid-major level, major level, a player. For the first time ever, March Madness will be allowed for the women's tournament. Last year, I'm sure you saw it on social media, and credit to all the young ladies and women who were open in what was going on at the NCAA tournament, where the weight room for men was the size of a hotel ballroom, and the weight room for women was a rack that you might see at a small Ramada in Cincinnati. The NCAA, I think, was exposed last year for the gender inequities for men's and women's basketball. And the March Madness thing always stood out to me because you see it everywhere. Floor for the men's tournament, but nowhere to be found in the women's tournament. Why is it taking the NCAA so long to get this figured out?
Yeah, so I'm serving my first year on the women's basketball NCAA committee right now. So I'm getting a front row seat on bid selections and things like that. And the gender equity report has been a big part of the work we've done. I'm told by committee members that this is a really interesting year to be a first year member.
I apologize for criticizing your committee.
Yeah, I will not respond. I'm getting an education on how this works. So we'll see if the jury's out how I feel about it on efficiency and those sorts of things. But we are, And I'll say we were a little bit distracted by it. It's such an important thing, but our committee and the Women's Basketball Oversight Committee have been tasked with a lot of what they've asked to implement. And it's taken away from me learning how to evaluate teams and do the conference monitoring, things that are important for the selection and seeding of the field that we'll do in a few weeks. So, but it's worth it. It's worth the extra time. Talk about name, image, likeness. I think the woman from Oregon who did the expose could probably get some kind of secret shopper sponsorship, the way that she got everyone's attention with that. But it was a good thing. I think it was a good thing to expose it. Why it's taken so long, to answer your question, I'm not sure. Checks and balances maybe haven't been there at the national office level. It's really, inertia, just what we've always done. We're doing it this way. And now we're shining a light on something really important. The March Madness slogan, from what I understand, there was an opportunity to utilize it years ago, and it was the women's basketball championship trying to create their own brand, I think, and trying to differentiate a little bit might have played into that. So it wasn't entirely hands off. You can't do this. I think there was a little bit more to it than that. But I'm energized by Minneapolis, which is where we're headed for the Final Four this year. I think we're going to see a lot of different things. Our student athletes are going to have an incredible experience there. I'm seeing way more detail about what will be done differently than I expected I would, from banners to what's going on in the promotional parts of the city, in the hotels and locker rooms and things like that. So I think it's going to be a much better experience, and it's just year one. We're evaluating a lot of different things going forward.
Chris, do you hear from student athletes about, hey, it was awful. Like the experience at whatever championship, very different for a men's sport as it compares to a women's sport?
Yeah, I mean, we hear all kinds of feedback, and you mentioned earlier our women's volleyball team won a national championship, and the experience they had was a great one. They've been fortunate enough to have multiple appearances to the Final Four, and I think they would attest that the experience has been enhanced year over year, and so I think it's trending in a good direction, and there's been a lot of attention that's been placed on it. It's an interesting challenge, and it's one that, with age has become more clear to me. When I was in the role of a football student athlete myself, and my now wife was on the crew team, it didn't seem like a big deal to me. Football generated all the revenue, and my 19-year-old self felt like, my team should be entitled to more of it. And I didn't have perspective to see the benefit of it. With age, and now as a daughter, or as a son, as the father of two daughters and a son, my oldest is about to go off and play college volleyball. Now we have 800 student athletes here at Wisconsin. 150 of them belong to a sport that generates revenue for us. The others, this broad-based opportunity, are the cost of that experience for them is underwritten by, in our case, football, a distant second, basketball, and hockey. And I think, in the debate around college athletics right now, nationally, this is lost. We're not talking about this. And I think this is the first question that needs to be answered. Because if you answer this question, all of the other questions become much easier to answer. And, at Wisconsin, one of our values is broad-based opportunity. We think it's important to have 23 sports. We think it's important to have 800 kids that can access an institution like ours, get an education, and have a lifelong experience from it. It's balancing all of these other factors and trying to create, a realistic, modern approach in a really messy debate right now. That's the challenge. And there is no easy answer to it. And I think if there were, we'd be operating that way right now. And so that's where you see a lot of the friction. And at some point, it's likely something is going to give. And in the meantime, we're fighting for and advocating for what we think is important. That is, it's important that as many kids as possible get the benefit from this college experience.
You did not cut sports during the pandemic.
Mm-mm.
Did you just mention that football, basketball, and hockey are your three revenue-generating sports?
Yep.
And they sort of lift the tide for all others. Track and field, which is a phenomenal program. Women's volleyball, which we all saw win a national championship. But those are your three revenue generating sports.
They are.
Correct.
They are. We were forced to make some really tough decisions during that period of time. Our finance model is a self-sustaining one. We're in a normal year. We're in a position to give back generously to our campus, which is not necessarily the norm. And we're happy to do that as a partner to our campus, as part of our campus. We made, some tough choices during the pandemic. We said goodbye to a lot of long-standing employees of our program so that we could preserve broad-based opportunities, so that we could preserve 23 sport programs. And, we were the beneficiaries of some campus assistance to do that, a loan from campus to help us do that, because our campus felt that it was important as well.
We only have about a minute left. Amanda, you've had to trim sports over the years. I know that's not an easy thing to do. It's incredibly challenging. But do you have revenue generating sports at Milwaukee?
We do. We have sports that generate revenue, none of which generate more revenue than what we spend. So we rely heavily on our campus support. And we have not cut sports in my time here at Milwaukee. So that isn't something we've done.
But I'm sorry. I think it was maybe it was a shuffling of coaches. I thought tennis, but I'm sorry. I think
it was before me. That has happened. It just was before my arrival. So we work really hard to not have to do that. We advocate very strongly on behalf of all of our student athletes. And I always get the questions, you probably too, around baseball, Chris. Why are you adding sports? We get football, we until we can.
I think time is running out on this.
Yeah. I've heard from Justin.
Baseball, 1991, I think was baseball was cut. Yeah, that's you're the only Division I baseball university in the state of Wisconsin. That's amazing.
So I won't be calling.
And I know, Peter, you've got big things in store here for the Milwaukee Bucks championship drive. It feels like the unofficial second half of the season is when things really start to ramp up, and you guys build toward the playoffs, which, of course, we're hoping for another miraculous run to a world's title. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah, I think all of us are kind of like we share, winning is paramount. So like we kind of talk about if we're gonna field a team, we're in a place like now where we go for championships, which is a very fun place to be.
Well, I really appreciate all your time. Peter Feagin, president of the Milwaukee Bucks, Amanda Braun, athletic director at UW Milwaukee, and Chris McIntosh, the athletic director at the University of Wisconsin. We'll step aside for a quick news break. Gene Miller is in this seat next. He'll be talking with Dave Kane, Wayne Larrivee, Steve the Homer True, and new Brewers radio play-by-play man Josh Maurer, our broadcasters panel, coming up after the 12 o'clock news on WTMJ 2022.
WTMJ, W277C.